Hi everyone, my name is Brittany. Welcome back to my channel. And today I'll be discussing my best books of 2022.
It's Brittany, bitch.
I'm going to apologize in advance if you can hear the rain pelting my window, but actually it was 85 and sunny today and very humid, and that's why I'm kind of a sweaty mess, and I'm actually just about to go take a freaking shower. But now, I smelled the rain earlier, and now it is here, and it's pelting my window, and now it's super gray, and I'm sure it's going to bring down the temperature, which is great though, because it was really fucking hot today, and it's only February. But anyway, let's get into my best books of 2022. I have very little books that I actually rate 5 stars. I actually counted them for 2022. I had nine books I rated 5 stars. That is fucking appalling, and that's something I would like to change this year in 2023. I'm gonna work on it. But let me talk about an honorable mention first. So I only gave this book 4 stars, but I wanted to include it in here because I thought about rereading it and maybe rating it higher, because I can't really stop thinking about this book, Our Wives Under the Sea. And this book I actually got on ARC, and I didn't expect to like it so much, but I ended up giving it 4 stars. But now I'm rethinking my rating because I enjoyed it so much, and it's something that I talk about so often to other people. But I don't know, maybe it just deserves 4 stars, but deserves to be talked about. I don't know. But either way, this book is really interesting because we're following a lesbian couple. So we have Miri and Leah, and Leah is the wife that goes under the sea. So she has a job with like a submarine mission and basically gets lost at sea. They don't know what happened to them for months at a time. And when she comes back from said mission, Miri doesn't really know how to interact with Leah because Leah's acting so different, having a lot of issues, like a lot of medical issues that are unexplained. She's acting different. Something is wrong with her, but they don't know what it is. And Miri is still reeling from the death of her mother, and now she's having to take care of Leah. And it's technically a horror novella, so just keep that in mind. But it's very graphic, and not in a bad way. It's so atmospheric, and it just feels like you're being slowly suffocated under the sea in such a good way. I can't even describe to you how cathartic this book felt. I don't know, it just did. I think this book could be really touching for you if you've taken care of someone with a chronic illness, because it's kind of like this, because Leah has like bleeding gums, she has to be soaking in the tub all day. It's just, she has a lot of like really weird issues that aren't explained, but other people that have their family come back from the same mission are also having the same kind of problem. So obviously something happened down there that we don't know. And this book has a very ambiguous ending. So if you don't like ambiguous endings, I wouldn't recommend it. It's very ambiguous, but I really fucking enjoyed this book, and it's my honorable mention. I just really don't know if it deserves 5 stars, but at the same time, it was so well done, and this is a debut novel. It's really fucking good, and I would just say give it a freaking shot. Okay, now on to my 5-star reads, and the first one was The Push by Ashley Audrain, and this is basically a dark psychological horror, I guess, about motherhood. So if you're looking to become a mother, I wouldn't recommend this book, but it's basically where we're following Blythe, who is struggling with coming to terms with motherhood and loving it and hating it at the same time, and she especially doesn't connect with her daughter Violet, who's actually her first child, but she connects with her second child, who's her son. And it's really interesting to watch this story unfold. A lot of it is, you know, in her head and very much a character study. So if you want a really like plot-driven novel, this isn't it. But there are some really good plot points in this that are very thrilling, is all I'm gonna say. I don't want to ruin it for you. I don't want to ruin any of the plot points that are gonna happen, but this book really kept me on my toes. But it was so interesting to be that introspective. And it's kind of a lot of, I think, women's fears is like, what if they like one kid and not the other? That is exactly what happens here. This book was so good. I really want to go back and reread it, but you know what? If you're looking to have a kid, or you're pregnant, or you're struggling with motherhood, I would not recommend this book for you because it's harrowing, but enjoy. Next one I'm going to talk about is Amari and the Night Brothers, and this is actually a middle grade book that I gave 5 stars to unabashedly. I freaking love this book. I even read the second novel that came out, I think later, it was last year, and it was so good. Like, honestly, this book is fantastic. It's basically Harry Potter with a person of color, and it's actually good and not racist. So honestly, I would highly recommend this book. I just love getting to watch Amari struggle through everything in such a good way. Like, she's so freaking smart, and she's basically off to find what happened to her brother, and then she gets sucked into this supernatural investigation bureau, which is a real thing. And her brother was an agent, and he went missing. So she's basically trying to find him throughout this entire novel, and it's just fascinating to watch her work her ass off to find her brother. And she's so young, and she's just working so freaking hard, and she makes her new best friend. Like, honestly, this book was just perfect. Like, if you're looking for the perfect middle grade to read with your child or read by yourself, like, this book is so good. It's so magical, it's so fantastical, but in a good way. Like, I can totally see the world, and it just makes perfect sense to me. Like the world building was done so well, but also the characters were done well, the plot was done well. Like this book is literally just 5 stars. Like it's perfection and it definitely deserves your attention. Even though it says middle grade, like don't even pay attention to that. Just go into it knowing it's a story about this sweet little girl named Amari who kicks ass. The next book is Migrations, and I didn't expect this book to become a 5-star read, but it did. I fell in love with this book. The minute I finished it, I wanted to pick it back up again. I think it might be one of my new favorites. I'm gonna test it out again this year because this book just made me feel, and not a lot of books can make me feel like this. I think I have a thing for melancholic, sad books because the melancholic atmosphere in this just took hold of me and it didn't let me go. So we're following Franny, and she's on this like Arctic expedition to basically find these like last birds, because basically most of the animal species on the planet are extinct in this near future, and she's basically gonna go find, I think they're terns, and she's gonna go like see their like last migration basically. So it's really sad in that aspect, but we're also getting to see Franny's life because she's a narrator through omission. Like we don't know half of the shit going on because she hasn't told us anything. And then she finally starts revealing stuff to us. And it's really fascinating. So it's a little bit mysterious, but I definitely would not call this like an environmental thriller. I think that this author does like a running mystery plot line really well, but it's not like thrilling. You're not like someone's gonna come around the corner. It's more like, oh, here's something I didn't tell you that's gonna rock your world. And I really enjoyed that about this book. Anyway, if you're hot for the environment and you love slow, character-driven, atmospheric, melancholic mystery books, I think this one is for you. And that's usually not my genre, but maybe it is. Next up, maybe a surprise, but it is Ice Planet Barbarians, the first in the series. And I heard about this book for a really fucking long time before I picked it up, and I decided to give it a shot in my smut reading vlog. I thought it'd be really fun. I fell in love with this series, dude. It was so good, and I think honestly blue alien smut is just my thing. It's just so much fun, and I like that the world is done so well, even though it's like erotica, right? Like it's not always meant to have like the most impressive storyline or plotline, but there's actual good plot in these books. Like I've read more in the series, and there's really good plot, there's really great romances and character development throughout them, and they're a freaking smut series, and they're like better books than like fiction novels I read. This book is about Geordi and Vektal. So Geordi, I mean, it starts off the whole series where women are basically kidnapped by a whole bunch of different kind of aliens or extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call them, and they kidnap the women to basically sell them as like sex slaves in like the galaxy. And there used to be a sexual assault scene, I believe is actually taken out of like the newer printed versions of the novel, but if you listen to the audiobook, I had to listen to that, so I do have to warn you that there is a graphic sexual assault scene right in the very beginning that happens to one of the characters that we're following later on, but it's a little brutal. So if you're listening to the audiobook version, please be aware of that. It's like in the very first chapter, it's right off the friggin' bat. But that's what basically happens is all these women were captured like overnight when they weren't even paying attention. They were sleeping, and the aliens took them, and they're gonna like sell them across the galaxy. Something happens to their ship and they crash land on this planet, which is where the blue alien, sexy, respectful men live. And Geordi basically goes in search of life on this planet and runs into Vektal, and sexy hot smut commences. These are just a really fun time, but especially the first novel I think is my favorite in the series just because there was so much plot in it, but it was also so interesting. It's really fun. I would definitely go check out this series. If you don't like smut though, I wouldn't recommend it because obviously that's like the whole point of this, and it's really hot. The last book I'm going to talk about may be polarizing, but it's I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. And if you don't know, Jennette McCurdy is a very famous actress from when I was younger. We're basically about the same age, I believe. She was on iCarly, she was on Cat and Sam. Like she's a very famous actress who worked with Nickelodeon, and she talks about a lot of her abuse. Basically this whole book is about the abuse that she saw at the hands of her mother, and as well as like Nickelodeon and other people, but and it also talks about her eating disorder. So I would 100% recommend that you go into the trigger warnings and please read them very thoroughly because this novel talks about a lot, but I loved hearing it from her perspective. I listened to the audiobook and she narrated it. It was incredible. Like the experience was incredible. It's one of those books I want to re-listen to just because like hearing her talk about her life was so compelling and so interesting, and it was so raw. Like she did such a good job. She even talked about how she wanted to be a writer when she was younger, and you can tell because she really put her heart and soul into this book. And then I also like was so obsessed with the book that I went and like watched videos of her online and interviews with her because I think that her as a person, she's just so interesting. And then I think her story is interesting. She grew up with this mom who was so obsessed with her weight and basically contributed to her having an eating disorder. And then on top of that, she dealt with abuse and neglect a little bit at the hands of Nickelodeon. And as we found out, the creator of that show was like a pedophile. I mean, it's a very harrowing story, but she tells us so well, and it's so freaking interesting just like hearing her talk about her life. I've already decided this year that I'm gonna stop rating memoirs, but like she technically got a rating before I stopped deciding to do that, and this is her memoir. It's getting 5 stars out of me. It's literally just so freaking good. I could not put the audiobook down. There was definitely some times that I teared up. Like it was very, very touching. And I would highly recommend this. If you're in the right headspace for this, I think you're really gonna enjoy this, especially if you used to watch the show when you're younger, because that's how I knew her. And I think I just connected to her that much more, like seeing her on TV and growing up like kind of with her, right? And then knowing the abuse and stuff that she had dealt with behind the scenes in her life and how hard it was just so heartbreaking, but in the best way. Like I feel like if I saw her, the first thing I want to do is give her a hug and tell her like I'm so proud of her, because she has dealt with so much, and I'm honestly just so freaking proud of her and like the crap she had to deal with. So good for her, and I would highly recommend this memoir. I think that it's a well-deserved 5 stars. Well, anyway, that's all the books I want to talk to you about today. Those were my best books of 2022. I hope I have a lot more best books for 2023, but I mean, even when you have a whole lot of 5 stars, it's kind of hard to narrow them down sometimes. These were still a little hard to narrow down, but I feel like these are the ones that I was most excited to talk about, most excited to share with you guys. If you guys have any of your favorite books that you guys read in 2022, please let me know, or even 2023, because honestly, I'm looking for more 5 stars this year, okay? 9 is ridiculous. I read like 120 books last year, and only 9 of them, 9 books were 5 stars. That's ridiculous. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys all very, very soon. Have a lovely day. Bye.